So this is an interview with Othmer. Konstantin Othmer, recorded August 28th, 2012. Konstantin, thanks for taking time to speak with us. You're an interesting guy. You've got an amazing background, and I'd love my audience to learn a little bit more about you. So, in fact, could you start out by telling us a little bit about your background and kind of what you've been up to over the last number of years?
Sure. Thanks for taking the time to interview me here, Hugh. Where do I start? I went to school at Caltech, had an engineering degree, then played poker full-time for a few years, back before it was, actually for a few months full-time, before it was cool, back in the 80s. And then joined Apple Computer, working on Macintosh system software on the graphics system called QuickDraw. I was at Apple for 5 years, worked on a bunch of different projects there. Printers, monitors, color sync, various things. Some software which is still part of the Macintosh OS today, which is sort of amazing considering that that's been a little while for technology to survive that long. And then got involved in a bunch of startups. The first one was an online gaming startup back in the mid-90s called Catapult Entertainment, probably 15 years, 10 to 15 years ahead of its time, sort of before the internet became widely known. And then a number of different things. One called Full Circle Software, which, if you remember, when applications crash and it sends the information back to the developer of that application, we were one of the first people to do that back in the early 90s. I started a hedge fund around 2000 that's now called Passport Capital up in San Francisco. Then got involved in the mobile industry, worked with Sprint, Verizon, and a variety of other carriers, delivering mobile software and services, things like push-to-talk for Sprint and Verizon, visual voicemail for Sprint, as well as some other services, voice SMS, for example. And then started working on Cloud Car at the end of 2011. So it took a couple of years, did some online speech transcription company that's actually going very well called SpeechPad, and then started Cloud Car right at the beginning of 2012, really.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, an amazing background. Now, you and I met when you were involved in the mobile industry, and a few years ago now. That world is changing a lot. You've worked at Apple. Kind of, what do you see happening in that industry? Where's that headed? Give us your best crystal ball view of that world.
Well, there's sort of two parts to that. There's the device side, which fortunately is now independent of the carriers and is progressing, at its own very fast pace, primarily driven by Google and Apple, and other people are getting involved there too. So it's really exciting. That's probably where the highest velocity of innovation is happening on the device and services side. And I think kind of some of the obvious trajectories. The phone will take over your wallet. It will take over your keys. So the three things you always, when you leave the house, you always I always do this pat down and say, okay, do I have my wallet, keys, phone? Well, I think over a few years, you're just going to be checking for one thing, which is the phone, and that will encompass the others. On the network side, I haven't really kept up with what's going on there. I just have a dream that the network operators focus on providing really high quality connectivity. I mean, it's amazing to me that calls still drop as much as they do. Very frustrating. And international calling is also very, very frustrating. In fact, when I went to Detroit the last time on the Windsor border, I was getting texts that said, "Hey, your data plan is now $50. Now it's $75." And over the course of my lunch, it was up to $125, and my phone was in my pocket. Other than the texts I was getting from my carrier telling me how expensive it was because it's probably doing data service in the background or something. I hadn't even left the U.S. This is a Windsor tower. So I certainly hope that that gets figured out, and so when you travel overseas, you don't have to sort of turn your phone off and keep it off, or flip your SIM card around, which is what I do, just because the costs are really prohibitive. And there's reasons for that, but those can all be solved. So I would hope those are the things that happen on the network side, and then on the handset side, that's on a tremendous trajectory.
Well, that's great. No, Con, that's tremendous. Now, you mentioned you're working on something called, or have been working on something called Cloud Car for the last year and some. Tell us about that. Tell us more about what you're up to.
So Cloud Car is an interesting company. When you bought a car, say around 2000, 2001, everybody got really excited because it had this nav system, had a big screen, sort of for the first time, and probably even earlier than 2000. And it was like, wow, that's really cool. And had a CD player, which was really great. So you had this high fidelity audio experience. You had a great navigation experience. Well, you fast forward, 10 years or 12 years to today, and those experiences aren't so great anymore, because when you look at your phone has mapping and navigation and voice input, and the maps are always up to date. It's got real time traffic. It's got overlays of where's parking, where is gas, all that kind of stuff. And your music's not really on CDs anymore. It's either in the cloud, or it's in iTunes, or it's on your device. And so what's happened is the car industry, and specifically the head unit, has not really kept up with the pace of consumer electronics that you see in mobile. And so, when you go to buy a car and the dealer says, well, how would you like the tech package for $2,000? You get this nav system that you can update with DVDs. People kind of look at that and go, that's not really great. And so that's a problem for consumers. It's a problem for the dealers. That's a problem for the car companies as well. And it really, there's an opportunity, I think, there for a revolution that sort of uses what we've learned from modern operating systems in telephony, and applying those to produce, kind of the next generation, even a reimagined experience, if you will, in cars. And so that's Cloud Car's mission, is to create basically the best possible driving experience by modernizing the connected head unit.
Got it. Yeah. And is that are you focused primarily on the kind of consumer experience, or does it also get into the the monitoring systems within the car, the actual electronics of how it operates, or is that less important to you?
Well, yeah, there's opportunities in both areas. Mm-hmm. If you've had the check engine light come on,
yeah,
and wonder, oh my God, what's going on? Do I need to pull over immediately, or can I drive it for a little bit? We believe there's some pretty good opportunities there to even proactively know when that's about to happen. And maybe take countermeasures up front. Certainly things like schedule repairs, you automatically, just sort of taking all that stuff to the next generation. From, like you said, better consumer experience around nav, around calling, around media, around all those things. People are doing that today on their phones in the car, which is very dangerous. Yeah. So at some level, we're working to solve that driver distraction problem and to make that safe. And there's a number of opportunities there with voice. Apple's doing some great stuff with Siri, but the screen's also very useful. But you have to be very careful how you use it and where the input is and those kinds of things. So we're reimagining the user experience, reimagining the driving experience, and certainly all the other systems in the car that have diagnostics. You've probably seen that port in your car, the ODB2 port that a mechanic or technician will plug into to try to figure out what's going on with your car. And in 2013, actually, smog checks will be using that much more than putting your car up on a dyno. So, you can imagine a world where if your car is connected, all that data that today is just sort of not going anywhere could be used for a number of useful things.
Got it. No, that's great. So my last question for you is, I know you're a big, you're a fan of Burning Man. I know you've been a number of times. So tell us about what intrigues you about that event, or why do you like it? Apart from the heat, the dust, the insanity.
I think it started yesterday, and I'm here.
And you're not there, right?
There's still some chance to get over to the playa. Burning Man, it's funny. I heard about it for the first time in the probably mid-90s, I think, 94, 95, and it sounded like a really interesting event. Always wanted to go, and then went for the first time in 2010, where it's actually got pretty mainstream. I think there were probably 45,000 people or so that attended. It's a what is Burning Man? It's kind of, people talk about a bunch of naked people running around drunk on the playa. Yeah, they talk about drugs. Yeah, okay. Art projects, all those kinds of things. I'm not into the drug scene, but it's certainly so much creative expression, and it's a world unlike anything you've seen. It's kind of like you're walking around Burning Man. It's like a movie set of Mad Max or something, and you see these crazy art cars driving around, breathing fire and playing loud music, and you go around another turn and you see people on 10-foot stilts with tables that are so high that the only way you can get served drinks or food at that particular establishment is to be on stilts. And so it's just an amazing creative community that if you haven't been, you sort of should put it, add it to the bucket list for sure.
Yeah. That's great, man. Well, Con, listen, I don't want to take too much more of your time. We just wanted to get an intro to you. I'm sure we'll have you back. Good luck with CloudCar. And I actually use SpeechPad. It's a great product. And hope that, we'll connect with you again. Take care.
All right, Hugh. Thanks. Talk to you soon.